This is one of the strangest alien biology claims ever posted online. But one detail may not have stayed inside this post. Now, there are details that people make up: a secret base, a hidden program, a body in a freezer, a scientist who saw too much. Those are the kinds of details that belong in stories. But every once in a while, something different appears. Not a bigger claim, not a smaller one. A strange little mechanism, a little piece of biology that nobody needed to invent. A detail so specific, so unnecessary, and so oddly physical that it feels less like imagination and more like someone's memory. In July 2023, anonymous user, posted one of the most detailed accounts of an alleged non-human biology that was ever written on the internet. They claimed to be a molecular biologist. They claimed that they had worked inside a restricted biomedical facility connected to Fort Detrick, Maryland. And they claimed they had studied 4 bodies, not human bodies. The program, according to the post, called them EBOs, Exo-Biospheric organisms. The post described these bodies in clinical detail: the skin, the eyes, the genome, the organs, the brain, and the way they moved waste out of their body. Now, that last part is where the story changes. Because 2 years after this post appeared, a named witness, somebody who spent decades publicly documenting their contact experiences, read this post line by line. And the first detail that stopped them wasn't the frozen bodies. It wasn't the genetics. It was a biological mechanism. Waste coming through the pores of their skin. Ammonia. A smell he said he had encountered himself in his own front yard. A detail he says on camera that he told almost no one. It's a detail that he was warned not to share. And a detail that then appeared years later in this anonymous Reddit post, written by someone claiming to have worked on the bodies. I want to be very clear before we go any further. This episode doesn't prove the post is true, and it doesn't prove the post is false. What it does is follow one question: how does a strange biological detail end up in 2 places that shouldn't touch? I'm Buddy T, a former detective, 25 years of forensic investigation. In my world, a single detail that matches doesn't close a case, but sometimes it opens one. There is a basement, not metaphorically, a real basement, according to the account, underneath a legitimate biomedical research environment near Fort Detrick, Maryland. In that basement, there's a freezer room lined with horizontal freezers, -80 degrees Celsius, vacuum sealed bags, humidity controlled air, all standard procedure, clinical language. And in those bags, according to the post, were 4 bodies, approximately 5 feet tall, white skin underneath a gray protective film, 4 digits on each hand, no genitals, no anus, no vocal system capable of speech, eyes much larger than ours, and a brain divided much differently than ours. And trauma severe enough that the author compared it to injuries in the aftermath of a serious motorcycle accident. Whatever happened to them, the bodies, they didn't arrive here gently. The anonymous author claimed to have a PhD in molecular biology. They say they were recruited not by accident, but through a strange chain of interviews that seemed less interested in their published research and more interested in the way that they behaved under pressure. That detail always stayed with me. It's not cinematic. It's not heroic. It's not, I was chosen because I was brilliant. It's something much smaller. They say they were noticed because of their attitude, their ease, the way they moved through the professional space. Then came the interviews, different locations, different people, less direct each time, and eventually an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. Then an archive room, not a grand tour, not a dramatic reveal, but a room full of documents, procedures, reports, notes, files, the kind of dry paperwork that makes a strange claim seem either a little more convincing or more carefully constructed. And that's the line that this post lives on. Either it's genuine insider account from somebody who touched a program that was never supposed to see the light of day, or it is a fiction, a well-written fiction, by someone who understands molecular biology well enough that a lot of serious people who it had them looking twice. Well, before we go into the biology, I want to show you the lock this story is built around. Now, the Post makes hundreds of claims. Most can't be verified, but one of them matters more than the rest: the body. Now, according to the author, the body does not remove waste the way we do. There's no anus. Instead, waste leaves through the skin, through tiny pores, ammonia-rich vapor used not only to remove waste, but to cool the body. Because if the entire post is a hoax, that detail should have stayed inside the hoax, but it didn't. Now, most people have heard about this EBO post and they've never actually read it. They know the reputation, they know the phrase alien bodies in a basement, but the real power of the post is not the headline, it's the structure. This author doesn't write like someone trying to win a UFO argument. They don't spend most of the post talking about spacecraft. They give us biology, cold, dense, technical biology. The author's first major claim is simple but strange. The EBO genome is DNA-based. Well, it's not alien chemistry. It's not foreign biological language. It's DNA, the same genetic system that's used by every other living thing on this planet. Now, that immediately creates a problem. If these organisms are truly from somewhere else, why would they use our biological language? The author's answer is a little more unsettling than a supernatural one. They suggest a shared biological ancestry, a split somewhere deep in the history of life. Two branches connected at the root, diverging across a time scale we can barely imagine. But the post turns because the genome, the author says, doesn't look like something that wandered through evolution untouched. It looks, in their words, arranged, condensed, almost entirely clean of the wasted space that makes up the majority of the human genome. The author describes a precise address system embedded at the start of every single gene, a filing system built into the biology. Their conclusion? This does not look like it's naturally evolved. It looks designed. Now, I have to stop there. That's a claim. That's not evidence. There's no paper, no sequence, or no independent lab. We can't test the claim, but we can evaluate the shape of it. And the shape is unusual. This is not someone saying, "Trust me, bro, aliens are real." This is someone constructing a biological system with enough technical specificity that people trained in the field recognized the language. Now, that doesn't make it true, but it makes it way different from ordinary internet fiction. The bodies are humanoid, but not human. A gray appearance is not the skin itself. It's a biosynthetic film, as he describes it. It's a protective outer layer. Underneath the skin is white, hairless, and regular in texture. Eyes are significantly larger than ours, no vocal cords, no teeth in any meaningful sense. The digestive and respiratory systems do not cross the way ours do. And here's where the post gives us what we've been waiting for. A central organ filters blood and routes waste through four main branches, one to each limb, subdividing into smaller and smaller channels until waste is excreted through the microscopic pores across the entire surface of the skin. The waste is high in ammonia. Evaporation of the ammonia cools the body. The harder the organism works, the more ammonia is produced, and the more cooling occurs. Waste removal and thermoregulation in one system. According to the author, when the protective film is removed from the body, the smell is intense. It's ammonia, burnt hair, something biological and wrong. Now, that's not a casual detail. It's too specific. It's just too strange, too physically unpleasant. Most people writing UAP fiction reach for the dramatic. They give us crystalline organs or photosynthetic skin or a brain made of light. This author, he gave us a waste system, a cooling mechanism, a smell. Near the end of the post, the author describes something they allegedly read in the archive room. Not a corpse report, not a document, but a documented communication with a living EBO. What that being apparently described was not a military plan, not an invasion, but a belief system. The soul, according to the post, is not the property of the individual. It is a fundamental characteristic of nature, like gravity, a field that becomes more complex whenever life appears, and it accelerates in the presence of sentience. Their purpose, as the author understood it, is to push that field towards something the post calls apotheosis, a critical mass of sentient complexity, something never before achieved. This belief compels them to seed life, nurture it, shape it, monitor it, and influence it for the ultimate purpose of creating the apotheosis. Paradoxically, they have little or no respect for individuals' well-being. Seed it, shape it, for a purpose the individual organism will never fully understand. That's the coldest line in this post, and it's the part that stays with you long after the biology fades. Now, this post went up in July of 2023, and it spread fast. Then it was archived, it was discussed, it was mocked, and it was defended, broken apart, rebuilt. Most of the anonymous UAP posts burn really hot and then disappear. This one did not. It kept on resurfacing, partly because of this biology, partly because the tone was wrong for a hoax. It got smaller when it should have gotten bigger if it was a hoax, and it got more specific when it should have reached for drama. The author admitted up front that he was introducing red herrings about their personal details. Now, that's worth noting. That can be read a couple of ways. A real whistleblower is protecting themselves, or a fiction writer is giving themselves an escape hatch. Both remain possible. But that's exactly why this post is frustrating. It gives you just enough to keep reading and not enough to conclude. Then a Reddit account operating under the name Gary J. Nolan _prime, which is consistent with the known public engagement of Professor Gary Nolan of Stanford, one of the most credentialed scientists to publicly examine the UAP-related biological questions. He responded to the post. His post wasn't an endorsement. He didn't say any of it was true. But what he did say in substance was this: the competent molecular biologists who have already commented on this thread should organize, self-select into working groups and break down every biological claim, one by one, not as a belief, as analysis. Claim by claim, what's plausible, what's wrong, and what would require data. He called it a chain of custody of trust question. And he said there wasn't enough data to assign any likelihood to the claims, but he stayed. He read it. and he called for a serious analysis. Now, for an anonymous Reddit post, that level of response from that category of source is highly unusual, unusual enough to flag. Most posts like this collapse under their own weight or become pure mythology. This one entered a third category, unproven, unverified, but technically specific enough that serious people didn't all walk away immediately. Still, a detailed post and a call for analysis is not the lock clicking. The lock clicks when that same detail appears somewhere it should not. Whitley Strieber has been part of the contact conversation for decades. Whether you believe his experiences or not, he's not anonymous. He is named. He's documented. He's very public. His story has been debated, challenged, analyzed, and rejected. It's been defended and reinterpreted for almost 40 years now. And that's what makes this moment different. On the Weaponized podcast, Whitley Strieber described reading the EBO post. He said he went through it carefully, line by line, and one of the first details that stopped him were the pores, the skin, and the ammonia, the excretory system. Now, according to Strieber, that matched something he had personally witnessed, not in a dream, not in a hypnotic regression, not in a symbolic vision, but in his front yard. He described seeing the beings wiping something from their arms, and then he described the smell. And then he said this on camera in his own words.
This document on Reddit put out by a biologist who claims that he was at Fort Detrick, which I had heard some of the bodies were at Fort Detrick years ago. And he had done autopsies. And so I read the document and I thought, my God, the first thing in this document, the first words in it, are something I saw with my own eyes happening, but that I have never written about. Nobody knows about it. And I told Bud Hopkins about it, and he said that to me, oh, don't tell anyone about that, Whitley. That'll make you seem insane. I thought to myself then, make me seem insane? Come on. Yeah, I'm already in that box, deep in that box, and I'm not getting out anyway. But I never told anyone because it was too weird. It's about the way they evacuate waste. And it comes out through the pores on their skin. And I saw them in my front yard wiping this stuff off of their arms. And I could smell it. And, then this guy is describing this whole process exactly. So I went through the whole document in the fourth mind, literally line by line, and compared what he was saying with what I had observed over the years.
That's Strieber on camera on Weaponized podcast, in his own words. Bud Hopkins was the well-known and now deceased abduction researcher. He said that in private conversation, and it can't be independently verified. This is Strieber's on-camera testimony about a personal exchange that he and Hopkins had. But the fact that Strieber kept the detail private and said so publicly, and then it found it in the post, well, all that is documentable. Then years later, an anonymous molecular biology post appears on Reddit, and inside that post is the same detail. Not large eyes, not small gray beings, not telepathy. Those are everywhere in this space. Those are the common language of hundreds of experiencer accounts. But this was different. Waste went through the skin, ammonia-rich vapor, pores, a body cooling system, cooling itself through excretion. Now, as an investigator, I want to be precise about what this is and what it is not. This is not proof. Strieber is not a molecular biologist. He has not examined a body as far as we know. He cannot corroborate the genetics, the brain structure, or the cell lines. He is one named witness, describing one specific detail that he says he witnessed personally, kept mostly private for decades, and then found this described in an anonymous post from someone claiming to have studied the bodies. Now, here's what my training and experience tells me to pay attention to. The detail he corroborates is not the headline. It's not the dramatic claim. It is a deeply specific, anatomically unglamorous, genuinely strange mechanism that most people writing alien contact fiction would never think to invent. And if they did invent it, they almost certainly wouldn't put it first. The detail that showed up in Strieber's front yard is the same detail the anonymous biologist placed at the top of their document. Now, in a criminal investigation, a single corroborating witness on a single specific detail does not close a case. But many times it opens one. I'm not telling you the post is true. I'm telling you this pattern has my attention. Okay, so here's what I keep falling back to. At the end of this post, buried after thousands of words of biology and anatomy and a cellular machinery that he describes, there is a philosophy, not a human philosophy, theirs. The individual does not matter to them. The field does. Memory, experience, suffering, discovery, all of it feeds the complexity of the field. And the beings described in this post are not here to save the individual. They are here to cultivate the process. The coldest part isn't the freezer in the room. It's not the bodies. It's not the trauma. The coldest part is the possibility that they do not hate us. They do not love us. They simply do not prioritize us as individuals. It's like a farmer could care deeply about the harvest and still not mourn the loss of every stalk. Or a gardener can love the garden and still cut away many living things. That's the feeling this post leaves behind. Not an invasion, not a rescue, but cultivation. And what the post describes about the soul, that it's not yours, that it's a field, that it passes through you and persists beyond you as part of something much larger. Now, that's not the first time that this framework has surfaced in this space, and probably won't be the last either. But that is the next investigation. So where does that leave us? We have an anonymous post from 2023 claiming to describe the biology of non-human bodies. We have technical detail that people with relevant training took seriously enough to examine rather than dismiss. And we have a public response from an account consistent with one of the most credentialed scientists in the space, not endorsing the claims, but refusing to casually throw the process away. And we have a named experiencer, Whitley Strieber, saying on camera, on Weaponized Podcast, that one of the strangest biological details in this alien biology post matched something exactly that he had personally witnessed and kept mostly private for decades. One detail sitting at the center of all of it: pores, ammonia, waste through the skin. A mechanism so specific it should have stayed inside the fiction, if it was fiction at all. But it didn't stay in one place. It crossed over. And when a detail like that crosses over, you follow it. Now, that doesn't mean you believe everything connected to it. It means you mark it, you preserve it, and you ask better questions. Because in my experience, the truth doesn't always arrive in a confession form. Sometimes it arrives as a small detail that no one can explain. I'll link this original post or the Metabunk archive of it and the relevant source material in the description. Read this post yourself. Not as a believer, not as a debunker. Read it like an investigator. Look for the details that feel unnecessary. Look for the places where the story gets smaller instead of bigger. And then ask yourself the question that I can't shake. Why would this be the detail that matched? I'm Buddy T. This is Beyond the Map. Follow the pattern with me.